Hi, I'm Ryan with our debtfreelives.com. Today I'm going to show you what you need to build a computer, and actually for this computer I'm going to use it for video editing, and instead of spending $2,000 we're going to go ahead and build it ourselves, and I'm going to show you how you can actually build it for really fairly cheap. So the first thing is when you're deciding on what you want, the first thing you'll look at is the processor. So you'll want to decide which processor you want to go for. What I did is I actually went with the Ryzen. It's the AMD processor. You can see right here, it's the 3600, and this was actually for $189 off Amazon. I got it brand new, and this is a very quick processor. I used a website, it's the CPU Benchmark, and you can see how quick each of these processes are. So they basically go through and they take a variety of different tests and clock them and determine their speed. So you can go through there, you can actually look for which is going to be the best value, and this was one of the highest ones as far as value goes. And again, it's enough for me to do what I want to do with it. Now the next thing is, since I work for Micron, actually I get a discount off all Crucial stuff, so I decided to go with the 1 terabyte, and this one is the NVMe M2 SSD drive, the solid state drive. And this one's actually, it's really quick. It's one of the quickest that you can get, and if you do have a motherboard that does have that capability, I would recommend this. So this one, again, I would recommend buying it brand new. There's not going to be, like I said, a ton of savings if you go to eBay and purchase these used. But if you are looking for more memory, I would recommend going with a hard drive. You can find hard drives for about 40% discount for used hard drives. And again, they may be fairly new, they may be fairly new and haven't been used a ton, and so the hard drives are definitely, that's an option. And so if you're wanting additional space, again, I would recommend you'll want to boot off a solid state just to keep everything running quickly. You can purchase, like I said, you can purchase these off eBay. The hard drives, you can buy them new, they're really cheap. But you can get them for about 30 to 40% of a discount if you buy them off eBay used. So I would recommend that. Again, for me, it doesn't matter if it's new or not. I use actually 2 of these for backups, and I'll store some data on there. But again, it's not that big of a deal if they're new or not. I'm not too worried about it. The next thing is the motherboard. Now, the motherboard that you get, it's very important. You want to make sure, once you select your processor, that you find a motherboard that's actually going to be compatible with it. And another thing to look for is, with the motherboard, one of these, you're going to have a variety. It'll come in just like this. And so depending on what you're looking for, again, this is what the motherboard will look like. You'll have all your components over here. Now, with this motherboard, one of the things that's important to go ahead and set this one down. Now, the motherboards you can find off eBay, and they're usually, you can find them for about 30% cheaper than you can if you were to buy them new. There's not really that big of an issue if you buy a used one. Usually, as long as everything works, it should be fine. You shouldn't have any issue with it. One of the things is you may be looking for certain outlets, and you can go through and you can determine if this is the right one for you. For example, I wanted one that had 4 DIMMs for the for the DRAM that's going to be in here, so the DDR4 memory that's going to be in here, this will work perfect for it, because I want to eventually upgrade it. I want to have that ability. And so this is a great option. So I went through and just looked for certain things that I wanted in that motherboard. And so some of those things can include, there's USB 3.1, maybe you want a certain amount of PICE, there's different levels that you can get in there, or different types. There's a number of different things that you could look at this for when you're looking at these. So again, as long as it supports your processor, depending on the capability here, this actually has an opening. This actually supports this particular type of SSD. It's one of the fastest, so it's definitely something that I would go into. The next thing is we'll look at the graphics card. So I was looking online, and this graphics card was off Amazon. That's 8 gigabytes. It's the Radeon 570. It's the GDDR5. This one right here, actually, if we look at it, I picked this up for, I believe it was $89, including shipping and handling. And I won this auction. When I went to look for new ones, they were about $150, $160. So this was actually a pretty good deal. Saved about 50% on that. So that's another thing. If you're looking at graphics card and you don't mind a used one, that is a good way to go, because you can get something with a lot of processing power for fairly cheap. One of the things that I will say that you do want to check out when you're looking at these is actually the display ports. The out ports. So for example, this one has 3 display ports, HDMI 2, and then dual link DVI. So depending on the support that you need, for me, I'm using this for video editing. It doesn't really matter too much, but I use display ports. All the monitors that I have display ports, and I also have HDMI, so I'm not too worried about this one. This one will work perfect. The next thing you'll want to look at is the power unit. So how much power are you going to need? Now, one of the things that I went with the 650 watts, and the reason why is because in case I decide to upgrade, I've been kind of considering maybe I'll go upgrades to the Ryzen 9. If I do decide to do that, how much more power do I need? Or if I ever decide to overclock anything, this will give me more than enough power to do so. And these are fairly cheap. This one I actually got off eBay. It was actually brand new, and it was for $24.99. So it really wasn't too bad. So that was actually a pretty good deal. And then the DRAM. So I actually have DDR4 already with this, and since I'm not gaming, I don't care too much about the speed. So with this one, it's 2 8 gigabyte sticks, and with this particular motherboard, the important thing is when you're looking at this, you'll notice it's dual channeled. So it has the ability to increase the speed if you use these in pairs. So with that dual channel, having 2 particular DRAM sticks is actually having the same type is actually beneficial to the system. It can actually process things faster, and right now, like I said, I just have I have 8 gigabyte sticks. I've actually ordered through Crucial. They have a great option. If you go to their website, you can view a particular computer if you have, for example, an HP model. But if you don't and you have the motherboard, you can actually search for the motherboard brand and a type, and it'll tell you what the compatibility is, and it'll let you know what the max DRAM, the max DIMMs that you have. So maybe you have 4 DIMMs, maybe you have 2, and then it'll let you know how many gigabytes you can have in each DIMM. So that's very important. Now, the next thing is I bought a case. So this is a computer case. This one I purchased off eBay. And one of the things to look at is what are the components that you get with this. So when you're looking at this, it really depends on what are you going to use it for. Depending on the size. So for this particular motherboard, I went with just the standard size. Lastly, when I'm looking at the power, determine if I have the right one, I again went with the 650 watts. I have this device here. It's the top. It's called Top Greener. This actually it's great. So if I go over here and I look at this particular outlet, again, I've got them throughout my house, so I've got a number of them. You can actually see, I can see exactly how much power I'm using. It breaks it down into volts, watts, and then it has the amp right there. And so I can see the actual usage. So once I build this system, I can see if I have enough power to make sure that I'm not close to the limits. So let's say, for example, you went with a 400 watt. If you went with a 400 watt and you're not quite sure if it's enough, this is actually a great tool to see how much power you're using. I also use it because I have a server set up and I like to see how much power it's using throughout the day. As it's being idle, as I'm using it, things such as that. So this is actually a great tool. And this, again, was fairly cheap. And so I also have a wireless keyboard desktop from Microsoft. It was on sale through Amazon. I picked up another one because I already have a wireless mouse, but I use it for my server. This one will actually I'll have it downstairs, and I'll use it with my TV also.